The anime opens with the protagonist Taku completely lost and surrounded by blinding light. He asks the obvious question, "Where am I?" as if the light itself would answer. His last memory was of being swallowed by this mysterious glow, and now he found himself in an unfamiliar place. Moments later, a woman named Nolan appeared and explained the situation. She apologized, admitting that Taku's arrival was a mistake. He wasn't supposed to be part of the summoning. Out of Taku struggling to piece everything together, Nolan clarified that the summoning process wasn't as precise as it sounded. It randomly pulled individuals from different worlds, and he had been an unintended casualty of the spell. Once she realized the blunder, she resorted to unconventional magic to isolate him and bring him to her. She went on to admit that the summoning spell was flawed and extremely dangerous. It had even been banned because it could destabilize the world, but some reckless kingdom decided to use it anyway. She tried to stop them, but things spiraled out of control. Taku asked about the others who had been summoned with him, hoping for a silver lining. Nolan told him they were sent to the correct location because they were legitimate summonings. That was when Taku let out a sigh. "So, I'm just a mistake," Nolan confirmed it, leaving him more frustrated. He demanded to be sent back home immediately, but she told him it wasn't possible. His physical body had been destroyed during the summoning. Taku's confusion turned to panic as he asked, "What do you mean I don't have a body?" He looked down and saw that he was nothing more than a glowing orb of light. Nolan explained that his body couldn't survive the process and apologized again for the disaster. Taku, feeling his frustration boil over, told her that apologies wouldn't fix anything. He wanted to know how he was supposed to live now. Nolan suggested he adapt to his new form and start a new life in this world, as returning to his old one wasn't an option. Taku, still grasping for solutions, asked if he could at least be sent to the holy city of Cydonia. Nolan said it was possible, but warned that life there was difficult, especially for someone summoned by accident. Wanting to make up for her mistake, she proposed sending him to a different place with a new body and a special blessing. When Taku asked what kind of blessing, she described it as being similar to powers from video games and anime, something she thought might suit him. She told him he could begin this new life by saying the word status. Reluctantly, Taku said it, and a glowing screen appeared. It displayed his name, age, and a blank profession. Noticing the blank space, Taku insisted that his old job be listed, as if clinging to it would make this nightmare any less ridiculous. Nolan took the time to explain the world's elaborate job system, treating it like a casual job fair for newly summoned residents. Takumi, clearly not thrilled about the idea of being an adventurer, requested a non-adventurer job. Nolan, playing the role of a magical career advisor, granted him some handy skills and sent him off to start his new life. Takumi, feeling more like a disgruntled tourist than a hero, crash-landed on the continent of Asgard and immediately grumbled about how awful the whole experience was. Needing a moment to collect his thoughts, he wandered to a nearby river to take a breather beside the fresh flowing water. It was there he caught a glimpse of his new face for the first time. The perfected, generic Isekai protagonist look. Dressed in typical aristocratic clothes and carrying a bag that might actually be useful, Takumi decided to open it. Inside, he found food supplies, water, and some gold coins, basic necessities covered thanks to Lady Nolan's magical welcome package. Grateful to Lady Nolan for his decent start, Takumi decided to check his status menu to see what skills he'd been gifted. The system menu displayed his blessings, including one from Lady Nolan herself. This worried him because in this world, everyone's skills and blessings were visible to all. Having a goddess's blessing would make him stand out like a sore thumb. To avoid unwanted attention, Takumi decided to hide his blessing from public view, along with his item box, which could also be seen as a cheat item. Never having used magic before, he was curious to see if he could actually pull it off. Not keen on using flame magic in the wild forest, he opted for a water spell instead, successfully generating a ball of water. Encouraged, he then tested wind and rock magic, both of which seemed pretty handy for combat. Getting accustomed to his new body, Takumi set out to find a village and stumbled upon some high-quality wood, which he instantly turned into a spear using his blacksmith skill. Next, he used his appraisal skill to gather rich medicinal plants, just in case of emergencies, and stored them all in his other dimensional item box. Suddenly, a young girl named Molly burst out of the rushes, being chased by a huge, ferocious rabbit. She hid behind Takumi, pleading for his help. True to his word, Takumi didn't let her down. He used his spear to literally one-shot the horned rabbit in the head, unlocking the warrior job for him, even though he'd made it clear he didn't want to be a fighter. He checked to make sure Molly was okay and learned that she had come to the woods to collect medicinal herbs for the nearby village. With his goal being to find a village, Takumi decided to tag along with Molly. He stored the slain rabbit in his item box right in front of her, forgetting that flaunting his cheat skills could attract unwanted attention. Meanwhile, back at the Holy Sidonia Empire, 3 high schoolers suddenly found themselves in a large hall, greeted by a cloaked woman who declared them the new heroes of the world. Elizabeth, ever the drama queen, introduced herself to the high schoolers as the first empress of the Holy Sidonia Empire. With a grand flourish, she removed her cloak to reveal a face so unsettling it could have been a villain audition. Akane, one of the summoned heroes, accidentally triggered her blessing from Lady Nolan. This gave her an immediate gut feeling that Elizabeth was not the kind of person you'd trust with your life or lunch money. Meanwhile, Takumi and Molly had arrived at Board Village, which, contrary to its name, was brimming with activity. Molly's parents, Banga and Martha, were profusely thankful to Takumi for saving their daughter from the ferocious rabbit. When Takumi politely asked if he could stay for a while, they didn't just say yes. They started building him a house. Takumi was stunned. Who builds a guy a house just for asking to crash for a few nights? Shocked but not one to turn down free real estate, Takumi decided to help out. He tried using magic to level the ground, but his lack of experience with mana management landed him flat on his face. The villagers, impressed by his magic but concerned for his well-being, assured him they'd handle the construction. In record time, his house was finished, complete with furniture. Takumi settled in and, being the overachiever he claimed not to be, decided to channel his tiny brain into blacksmithing. Using a mix of iron ores, including some magical ones, he experimented with alchemy to melt and mold them into ingots. Normally, this would require a massive furnace, but Takumi wasn't about to let physics ruin his fun. Buoyed by his success, he began dreaming up other creations. Unfortunately, he didn't know when to stop, and Molly found him passed out from mana exhaustion later that evening. Molly fetched help, and Martha immediately scolded Takumi for overworking himself. Banga, more practical, handed him a healing potion. Fully recovered and utterly unbothered by Martha's lecture, Takumi resumed his alchemy experiments. Under strict supervision, he crafted utensils and tools for the villagers. He even collaborated with the local blacksmith to forge a new spear. Later, Takumi asked Banga for a few potions to study, explaining he wanted to make his own using the medicinal herbs he'd gathered. Banga, mildly confused about why Takumi wanted to reinvent the wheel, agreed. After some messy but enthusiastic experiments, Takumi managed to create potions of varying colors and strengths, though he couldn't figure out why they differed. Determined to improve, he ventured into the woods for more herbs, but curiosity got the better of him. He bit into an unknown leaf, which turned out to be poison. Classic. In the brink of joining his ancestors, Takumi used healing magic to save himself. Just as he was recovering, he turned around to find a massive armored boar with glowing red eyes. Clearly not here for a friendly chat, the boar charged. Takumi grabbed his spear, but quickly discovered it was no match for the creature's ironclad hide. His first attack bounced off, and his second attempt shattered the spear entirely. Dodging the boar's relentless attacks, Takumi tried wind magic, then rock magic, but nothing worked. As the boar prepared for a finishing blow, Takumi noticed an injured poison spider nearby. Initially worried it might attack him, he quickly realized it was too hurt to pose a threat. The boar charged again, but the spider leapt into action, creating just enough of a distraction to save Takumi's life. With the boar still relentless, Takumi dug deep into his alchemical bag of tricks. He leapt into the air and used a decomposing magic technique to land a devastating blow on the boar's head, finally killing it. Exhausted but victorious, Takumi turned his attention to the spider, which was in even worse shape after intervening. Using healing magic, he patched up its wounds. Before Takumi could leave, a system notification popped up, informing him he had to tame the spider. Stunned by the idea of taming a poisoned spider, he asked if it would like to come with him. To his surprise, the spider agreed. Naming it Maple, Takumi watched as it evolved into a larger, more formidable version of itself. In a high-profile New York Times article on the situation, Takumi wrote, "Returning to the village with Maple and the defeated boar, Takumi caused a stir. The villagers were amazed by his feat and even more shocked that he'd tamed a poison spider. Amid the celebration, they prepared a feast with the boar's meat and handed Takumi its uneatable parts, materials he could sell in the city. As the villagers praise Takumi for bringing new energy to their lives, the scene shifts to Nolan, who observes Takumi from above. She mused to herself, 'He's doing well now,' and silently encouraged him to keep going. Her friend appeared beside her and asked, 'What do you wish for Takumi?' Nolan hesitated before replying, 'I had to do something different to get my life back on track.' Her friend reminded her, 'You gave him a new body, your blessing, and sent him a whole year into the past, long before the Cydonia Empire cast its summoning spell. Surely you must have something in mind for him.' Nolan softly replied, 'I don't have a specific wish for him,' before turning her gaze back to Takumi.
The next day, Takumi was scolding Kiad, his spider companion, for tying him up in her web while he slept and for turning the whole room into a silk fortress. Kiad apologized, saying she felt lonely and wanted to spend more time with him since he was always busy. Feeling a little guilty, Takumi admitted he'd been neglecting her because of his obsession with crafting potions and tools. He promised to take a break to hang out with her. Overjoyed, Kiad jumped on him, just as Martha walked in with food. The scene? Awkward. Takumi quickly explained that Kiad wasn't trying to eat him, but Martha was more interested in the silk-filled room. Seeing its potential, she used it to make some clothes that turned out stunning. The ladies explained that spider silk was a luxury material prized by nobles, and Takumi had no clue he'd been sitting on a gold mine. Martha asked Kiad for more elastic silk, and the spider delivered. But when Takumi invited Kiad to play, she flipped the script and said she was now too busy. Takumi laughed it off, glad she was having fun, and went back to his potion work. While working, Takumi realized it had been almost a month since he'd arrived in the village. He'd soon need to move to the big city for alchemy studies, but before leaving, he wanted to leave a lasting mark on the kind folks here. Later, Takumi visited Bobon the blacksmith to pick up his armor. Bobon pointed out his boots were terrible for trekking in monster-filled forests and insisted on fixing them. Takumi, playing coy, said he was just a crafter, not a fighter, but Bobon wasn't buying it. He knew Takumi often wandered into the woods and wasn't just a regular potion maker. Then, Bango dropped by to check out the armor and gave Takumi some life advice. For his craft to truly shine, he needed to move to the city where materials and buyers were abundant. Bango had even arranged a ride for him, with merchants from Bolton arriving next week. Takumi was touched by everyone's support and decided it was time to move on. Takumi visited Martha, who was about to throw away a horned rabbit that Bango had hunted. The rabbit's meat was delicious but risky to eat due to parasites. Takumi used his rare purification magic to make it safe. Martha was impressed by his ability to use light magic, a skill so rare that people could make fortunes from it. She warned him to keep it under wraps in the city, as it might draw unwanted attention. Before leaving, Takumi dedicated his last week in the village to improving it. He built a strong wall and upgraded production tools, making the place safer and more efficient. When the merchants finally arrived, Tapik, the lead trader, was amazed by the village's transformation. Takumi handed over 100 healing potions to Banga for the villagers' use before setting off for Belton. Pekeg was holding one of Takumi's healing potions like it was the Holy Grail, admiring how it sparkled in the sunlight. While he was busy geeking out, Martha and the villagers showed up to give Takumi a proper send-off. Molly asked where Kiad the spider pet was. Takumi said she was catching up on beauty sleep. Banga and Bowman gave him the usual macho advice to stay tough, while Martha handed over a tunic the villagers had made with Kiad silk. A homemade gift? Classic small-town vibes. Takumi got all emotional, bowing and thanking everyone for their kindness. As he boarded the carriage, you could see the waterworks starting. This was the first place he'd called home in Mildgard. A guy in the carriage casually pointed out how much everyone loved him, which, let's be honest, was obvious. The introductions started rolling in. Heth, the leader, kicked things off, followed by Riel, the sass queen, and Bogar, the bald brooding type who said nothing but radiated "don't mess with me" energy. Together, they made up the C-rank adventurer squad, Lion's Fangs, who were there to protect the caravan. Riel complained about how boring the trip was and said she was praying for a monster to spice things up. Riel noticed Takumi clutching his bag like it held state secrets. Naturally, she got nosy, and Takumi admitted it held Keed, his assassin spider. Riel, being the fearless type, peeked inside, and boom. Keed went full attack mode. Afterward, the spider cozied up to Bogar, who surprisingly didn't freak out and just held her like a kitten. Meanwhile, Pepik and the others asked Takumi about buying more of his magic potions, which seemed to be the real MVPs of this trip. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. Pepik looked like he'd seen a ghost, and the adventurers grabbed their weapons. Turns out, a horde of goblins had decided to crash the party. Riel finally got her wish and started sniping goblins from a distance, while Heath and Bogart jumped into the melee like pros. Meanwhile, two sneaky goblins tried to flank the carriage, but Riel wasted no time turning them into pincushions. After the fight, Riel suggested dissecting the goblins to collect their magic stones. The journey went smoothly after that, and 3 days later the caravan rolled into Bolton, the bustling city of Barkala. Takumi was wide-eyed and amazed. It was his first time in a big city, and everything felt shiny and new. Wasting no time, he headed straight to the Adventurers Guild with Lion's Fangs, who needed to report that their escort mission was a success. Takumi starts off needing to register at the Adventurers Guild so he can stay in the city, which includes officially listing his pet spider, Kaid. At the desk, he asks if there's an alchemist guild instead, but no luck. The receptionist tells him most people join the Adventurers Guild just to get an ID card. If Takumi's okay staying at the lowest rank, his registration won't expire, and he can do 1 easy quest per month. Not a bad deal for 0 effort, so he signs up, spider and all. Next, Takumi heads to Pepik's company to negotiate a deal for 100 potions. Pepik offers 10 silver coins per basic healing or stamina potion and 50 per mana potion. Doing some quick mental math, Takumi nearly faints. It's the equivalent of 7 million yen, and Pepik even says he gave him a beginner's discount because he's new in town. Takumi feels like this deal is too good to be true, but doesn't see any obvious scam signs, so he rolls with it. Pepik then asks about Takumi's living situation, suggesting he'll need a proper workshop if he's serious about potion production. Takumi admits he's broke, but Pepik insists on showing him a rental property. He sends his employee Thomas to escort Takumi to the place. Cue the shock. Takumi finds himself staring at a mansion and absolutely loses it, never imagining he'd live somewhere this fancy. Thomas casually drops the rent, 1 gold and 50 silver per month, way cheaper than Takumi expected. Takumi jokes that the place must be haunted, but Thomas assures him it's perfectly normal. Takumi spots a storage room he could use as a workshop and figures his potion profits can cover the rent. As Keed wakes up and asks where they are, Takumi tells her this is their new home. When Thomas asks if he's decided, Takumi agrees to take it. They finalize the deal, and Thomas promises to have everything ready for the move the next day. As they leave, a horrible smell hits Takumi. Thomas explains it's the city's sewer problem. Nobles use magical purification devices in their homes, but commoners just have to deal with the stink. Those devices are rare and expensive, dug up from dungeons or ancient ruins. Priests sometimes help purify the sewers, but it's just a temporary fix. The next day, Takumi moves in and sets up his workshop, postponing wall repairs for now. Instead, he focuses on crafting something crucial, a proper toilet. Using quartz and clay from Pepik's company, he mixes molds and uses magic to speed up the drying and firing process. After draining nearly all his mana, he levels up his alchemy and light magic and finally installs a top-notch magical toilet that purifies waste. Exhausted but proud, Takumi takes a moment to celebrate. Of course, peace doesn't last. Pepik shows up shouting for help. Turns out, Keed has cocooned the poor guy in spider silk. She insists it's a friendly welcome, but Takumi explains that only kids back in his village found that kind of prank funny. Pepik, oddly enough, seems to like the silk's texture. After freeing the merchant and apologizing, Takumi shows him the bathroom. Pepik is blown away by the magical toilet, which purifies waste and leaves only a tiny bit of residue. Paypek, impressed by Takumi's magical toilet invention, asks if the young man has a knack for light magic. Takumi, remembering Martha's warning to keep that under wraps, asks the merchant to keep it a secret. Paypek agrees but wastes no time ordering 100 more of those high-end toilets. Then, he casually suggests that Takumi get a slave contract. Why? Because Takumi's light magic skills are a jackpot, and leaving someone with that much value unprotected is like wearing gold chains in a goblin cave. The idea? A slave would act as both bodyguard and housekeeper, bound by contract to keep their mouths shut about Takumi's talents. Paypek drops some spicy lore. According to the Church of the Divine Light, which runs the Holy Empire of Sidonia, people with light magic are seen as chosen ones of God. They'd snatch Takumi up in a heartbeat to profit from his healing magic, especially since purification magic is usually reserved for the rich. Helping ordinary folks like Takumi is practically a crime in their eyes. Paypek has plans to help Takumi mass-produce his magical toilets while keeping his name off the radar. But when it comes to the slave idea, Takumi shuts it down, saying he's not about to own a human, no matter how practical it might seem. Before they can argue further, Takumi's guild card starts glowing with a notification. He has 1 month to complete a quest at his level. Realizing how overwhelmed he is, Takumi reluctantly admits he might need some help. Paypek asks if Takumi has time that day and drags him to Mulan Co., Bolton's most reputable slave market. While Paypek handles some business inside, Takumi steps into the garden and bumps into a woman. Before he can even say hello, she tells him to get lost. Meanwhile, the company owner, Mulan, introduces herself, and Paypek explains that Takumi is looking for a servant. Takumi hesitates because in his world, having a servant isn't even a thing. Mulan clarifies that in the kingdom of Barkula, servant contracts are very different from what he might imagine. Once a contract is signed, the servant is bound to serve their master, but there are strict protections in place. Servants are guaranteed food, clothing, and shelter, and masters are forbidden from forcing them to do anything not outlined in the contract. On the flip side, servants aren't allowed to spill any personal information about their master. This setup surprises Takumi. It's a lot more civilized than he expected. And it helps him warm up to the idea. Mulan then breaks down the types of contracts. Some people become servants to pay off debts, with the contract ending when the debt is cleared. Others are prisoners of war who enter servitude as a way to survive. Then there are those captured illegally and forced into servitude, which is the most common case. Paypek thinks Takumi should go for a prisoner of war servant because they can't be released without the master's permission. Plus, since Takumi is a producer with unique skills, having a reliable servant would be a huge help. Takumi agrees, admitting he's drowning in work, managing the house, doing his production, and fulfilling Adventurers Guild missions all at once. He needs someone to handle the day-to-day tasks at his mansion. He also points out that he ventures into dangerous areas for materials, so a servant with combat skills would be ideal to accompany him. Mulan picks up on his needs and suggests he might actually need 2 servants. She introduces Jean-Marie, a girl kidnapped by bandits as a child who has no family left. Jean-Marie has been trained in reading, writing, calculations, and all sorts of household tasks. Takumi, feeling a little awkward, scribes his house layout: a living room, dining room, and kitchen on the first floor, and 4 bedrooms plus a bathroom on the second. He asks Jean-Marie if she's up for the job. Without hesitation, she confidently says she can handle it. However, she notices Takumi looks uncomfortable and asks why. Takumi, being Takumi, blurts out that he's confused about why someone as beautiful as her hasn't already been picked by a master. Jean-Marie, blushing and visibly flustered, explains it's because she's only skilled in domestic tasks and can't join a master on adventures. Clearly, Takumi's mouth has a way of making things awkward. Takumi, desperate to clear up any misunderstanding, quickly assures Maria that he didn't mean anything offensive and doesn't have unrealistic expectations. With that cleared up, Mulan moves forward with the contract. However, when it comes to the combat experienced servant Takumi's looking for, Mulan admits she doesn't have any available at the moment. Maria brings up Sophia, but Mulan shuts her down, telling her not to meddle, and sends her off to pack her things. Once Maria leaves, Takumi asks about Sophia, and Mulan reluctantly explains. Sophia is an elf who was captured during a war between the kingdoms of Triaria and Ugar over 50 years ago. The kingdom of Ugar was known for its elves, but Sophia has been a tough case. She's never signed a contract with anyone. She has a damaged left ear, limited use of her right hand and left leg, and her unique elven spiritual magic is sealed due to a curse. Mulan believes this curse has crippled her abilities, making her unsuitable as a fighter. Despite hearing all of this, Takumi introduces himself and starts checking her stats. To his surprise, Sophia is incredibly powerful, hitting level 64. The curse and her physical limitations are holding her back, but Takumi believes he can break the curse and unlock her full potential. Mulan comes back to check on Takumi's decision, and he confidently says he wants to contract Sophia Sylvid. Mulan reminds him that her issues have gone unresolved for over 50 years, but Takumi doesn't waver. Amused, Mulan laughs and hands over Sophia to him. Sophia isn't thrilled, muttering under her breath about the decision. Takumi, noticing her frustration, asks her directly if she really doesn't want to come with him. Despite her clenched fists and anger, Sophia coldly replies that a servant's desires don't matter. With the contracts finalized, Maria expresses her gratitude to Takumi for hiring Sophia alongside her. Mulan performs the binding spell to seal the contracts, officially making them Takumi's servants. Maria promises to work hard and remain a loyal servant, while even Sophia reluctantly thanks Takumi, lowering her guard just a little. Mulan comments that she feels Takumi might actually be the right master for the two. When Takumi brings Maria and Sophia home, the moment he opens the door, he's tackled to the ground by Keed, his massive pet spider. Sophia immediately yells for Maria to stay back, ready to protect her from the monster. Takumi tries to calm everyone down, explaining that Keed is his pet. While Sophia eventually understands, she's still confused as to why her new master has a deadly spider lounging around the house. Takumi then shows Sophia a spacious room and tells her the one next door is for Maria. Both maids are shocked to be given their own rooms, with Sophia refusing at first, calling it too luxurious. Takumi insists that there are plenty of rooms for everyone and they should use them. To top it all off, Takumi points out the mansion's bathtub, which everyone can use. Sophia, trying to dodge the bath, suggests that Takumi should go first, but Takumi explains that the tub has a magical device that keeps it clean no matter what. Reluctantly, the servants try out the bath. Maria is overjoyed with her new life, while Sophia quietly processes everything. Maria admits she never thought Mulan would let them leave, as she'd rejected contracts with many wealthy masters before. She acknowledges Takumi as a rare, good master. Still, Sophia isn't fully convinced. She notices that Takumi's contract is missing key details like his birthplace and lineage, making her suspicious that he's hiding something. Later, the two servants are surprised to find dinner already prepared. While it seems like a kind gesture, Maria panics, thinking she's failed her duties since cooking is supposed to be her job. Takumi reassures her that he just cooked this one meal and that she'll take over the kitchen starting tomorrow. Maria insists on at least washing the dishes. After calming her down, Takumi invites everyone to sit and eat. Sophia remarks that it's traditional for masters to eat separately from their servants, but Takumi insists he doesn't want to follow those customs. He even asks them to stop calling him master and just use his name instead. The next day, Takumi picks up a magical parcel from the Pepek business company. While walking back, he notices a church he hasn't seen before. Curious, he enters to thank Goddess Nolan for all the blessings that have made his life so much better. However, he also wants to ask her why she warned him about the Holy Empire of Cydonia, which controls religion in this country. To his surprise, Nolan herself appears and takes him to the skies for a divine Q&A session. She explains that the Holy Empire of Cydonia and its Church of Divine Light have nothing to do with her. In fact, there are two religions in this world: the Church of Creation, which has worshipped her from the start, and the newer Church of Divine Light, which worships a non-existent god. Nolan reveals that the Holy Empire of Cydonia used force to spread its influence, and even activated the spell that summoned Takumi to this world. She didn't intervene because she wanted to respect humanity's free will. She warns Takumi that while her blessing will last forever, the part of it that has helped him meet good people and grow quickly will fade over time. From now on, his success will depend entirely on his own efforts. A year later, in the Holy Empire of Cydonia, a leader sits on his throne asking about the summoned heroes. His subordinate reports that the three heroes are training under Homer and Packard. While they were initially reluctant, Elizabeth convinced them to serve the Empire. Meanwhile, Akira and Yamato are honing their sword skills under intense pressure. When Yamato makes a mistake during training, a man mocks him, saying, "Is that all you've got?" This comment triggers Yamato's memory of being humiliated in a past fight by Ippon. Determined not to fail again, Yamato picks up his sword, ready to push forward and redeem himself. Akane gets called for training, but she flat out refuses because, surprise, she hates violence. That's when Elizabeth shows up to spin it as necessary strength to save the world. Akira jumps in with his knight in shining armor act, promising to protect Akane no matter what. Elizabeth lays on the compliments, saying Akane's friends are so inspiring, but Akane isn't buying it. She's convinced Elizabeth is shady and dangerous. Meanwhile, Takumi comes home and, as usual, his overly enthusiastic pet spider knocks him flat. Maria and Sophia rush over to help him pick up his things. But when Sophia reaches for a magical parcel, Takumi yeets it into his item box faster than you can say suspicious, making Sophia even more curious about what he's hiding. Later, Sophia decides to spy on Takumi in his workshop. What she sees is straight up weird. Takumi slicing his own arm with a knife dipped in some mysterious purple liquid and muttering, "Maria is terrible." That's it for Sophia. She bursts into the room, knocks Takumi down, and demands to know what he plans to do with Maria. But mid-rant, Sophia faints. Takumi checks her status and finds out she's exhausted and has an old wound on her hand. Wasting no time, he heals her wound and levels up his light magic in the process. After putting her to bed, Maria explains that Sophia's curse drains her energy from time to time. Takumi, not one to waste an opportunity, combines two of his spells, Dissipate and Extra Heal, and manages to heal Sophia's ear, which had been cursed for years. He's confident she'll be back to her old fighting self in no time. When Sophia wakes up, she tells Maria to run far away from Takumi because she still thinks he's shady, but Maria defends him, saying he broke her curse. That's when Sophia notices her mana is flowing freely again, something she hasn't felt in ages. Demanding an explanation, Sophia corners Takumi. He explains that he needed to level up his light magic to break her curse. The purple liquid she saw earlier? It's a poison made from the Nenum herb, which he got from Papek. Takumi was cutting himself and healing repeatedly to level up his magic. Sophia also wants to know why he called Maria terrible. Embarrassed, Takumi admits it's because Maria accidentally mixed up and tossed some of his precious medicinal plants. Realizing how much effort Takumi went through to help her, Sophia has a change of heart. She pledges her loyalty to Takumi for the rest of her life, fully convinced he's a master worth following. That's it for episode 3. Thanks for watching my recap. See you in the next video.